Hey, what's up? Sorry for the bad audio, but I thought I'd do a follow-up with Bob's Burgers from the last video I did. Also, have to learn to stop stuttering and saying, every 10 seconds. I just gotta stop doing that. Anyway, I thought I'd talk about Bob's Burgers just quickly. It's not gonna be a long thing. And I wanted to extrapolate, that's the right word. I wanted to expand, that's a better word, on why I think Bob's Burgers is a nice show. I mentioned in a previous video that Bob's Burgers was built with the philosophy, what if the family actually liked each other? And if you go back and watch some of the shows you might be familiar with, I mentioned Family Guy and The Simpsons and stuff, um, you might notice that in American Dad, they basically hate each other. In Family Guy, they hate each other. Uh, you can even see this in the Flintstones. It's even a little bit, it's like antagonistic. The Jetsons too. And if they're not outright shooting each other, like in Family Guy or American Dad, a lot of the conflict is based on antagonism. Um, but in Bob's Burgers, it's normally built around misunderstandings or emotional conflicts, that deal with the silly story. And there was this episode early on, and I forget which season, so forgive me for that. But it's where Louise and her school are going to a school field trip, and Bob chaperones. And of course, he does a terrible job. And Louise and Pocket Size Rudy decide to go into a exhibit that's closed off. And Bob, gets roped in and actually, Louise strong arms him to do something dangerous, and he's like, "Yeah, I could do it because I'm cool." Yeah, and then they get trapped, high off the ground because they start climbing, and then when they're going up there, uh, uh, Pocket Size Rudy has this asthma attack. And then Bob's like, "Oh my God, we have to help him." And even Louise is like, "Oh my God, Rudy, you're gonna be okay." And then of course they give him his asthma pump and stuff. And Louise learns a little lesson about responsibility. But before Rudy freaking has a asthma attack, they're talking, and Louise lets something slip about Bob being in a nursing home and her watching the restaurant, because no one else can do it, and they have this cute little exchange where Bob's like, wait a minute, are you taking over the family business? And it's like, well, she makes a joke out of it, like, well, Gene, well, it wasn't my idea to put you in a home, it was Gene and Tina's. And then they have this funny exchange where Bob's like, "Oh my God, am I your hero?" And she's like, "No." "Oh my God, you look up to me." Like Bob's like mocking her for it. And she of course denies it. And then they go on and save Rudy's life by zip lining down on a rope and getting his inhaler. And and then, they're in the bus and they just make it just in time. And then Bob gives the counselor the ripped golden vest, and he's like, "Oh, here you go." And he's like, "Ah," because people love to shit on that guy for justified reasons. And when they're in the bus going home, Bob and her have this little moment, and she actually calls him daddy, and that's kind of, I'm not sure if it's accurate to say that's the first time, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I think that's the first time that you honestly, obviously, see that Louise actually loves Bob and she actually does look up to him. And I thought that was cute, and that's something you don't get with the other shows. And you even see little things like Bob and Louise, they watch spaghetti westerns together, and they have similar interests and have similar uh, things, similar types of humor and similar things that they enjoy, even though Louise is a bit more extreme, you know? And it's also nice because it's not just the nice family aspect, which is always good, but then there's also other characters. There's like Teddy, who's the good natured sort of guy. Sometimes he's the bumbling idiot, but he means well. You also see Mort, who's the very happy and chipper mortician, which people think is a little bit creepy. You got Mr. Fish Owner, this type of, I don't know what to call him. He's like Daddy Warbucks mixed with Willy Wonka, because he's so super duper rich, but he's also a little bit crazy. And he wears an eye patch for some reason. And then they introduce later on his brother Felix. And I don't mean to spoil any more episodes, just in case people genuinely want to watch it. I mean, there's a lot of episodes, but there was even an episode that I'm gonna spoil. I'm gonna spoil it. I'm gonna spoil it. Um, there's this episode where when it came to Mr. Fron, um, the kids do something, and Mr. Fron actually may have to leave the school. And at first, everyone's happy, but then, Louise and the kids kind of feel bad for him. And it's actually Louise and the kids that help him get his job back because he they actually like him in their own way, even though he's a pain in the ass. They actually do like him, and that's something that that level of compassion. So I keep bringing up the emotional beats because that's what makes the show different. It's not like in Family Guy where they just shoot Meg over and over as a joke, you know, um, as shock humor. It's not an episode where Brian is talking to this chick and then does his normal douchebag thing where he tries to play up himself as this great person and this intellectual when he's really not. Which in the previous video, I think I already mentioned that Brian used to be that guy. He wasn't a smart genius. He was just a normal guy who would trying to give Peter advice and hang out with him. It was his best buddy. But then over the course of the show, they morphed him into a caricature of leftist values. So he's a sad, alcoholic, drunk who is a douchebag towards women, and he's so arrogant, and he's a piece of shit. When really he really wasn't. He was just a regular guy who, I don't know, who for some reason they said, you know what we should do? We should turn Brian into the biggest piece of shit in the universe, and that will really make the show good. And to be honest, I think Brian should have died. I think Brian should have stayed dead because that's such a dick move where they killed off Brian. And I'm like, oh, cool, Brian's gone. But then you know, they tried to bring in this new dog, but I think they should have kept him because they make it a big deal. Oh, Brian's dead. And then they wait like 2 episodes and then they bring him back, which is bullshit. Like, why would you do that? They just did a reset with extra steps. And I actually did like, I believe his name was Vinny, because I did like his thing where at first Stewie doesn't like him and Vinny tries to, get him to like him. And then Vinny says that, he used to have this owner and they were like best friends, and then the owner passed away, and and he wants to be part of a family again, and then him and Stewie kind of buried a hatchet, and Stewie learns to kind of think of him as his friend. And even when Stewie tries to go back in time and save Brian, Vinny helps him do that because he's his friend. And I thought that was very nice. So instead of Vinny, who's a good-hearted uh, stereotype of an Italian dude, arguably, they decided to bring back the douchebag asshole Brian, which is, whatever. And that's something you won't see in Bob's Burgers. You won't really see that level of what's the word? That level of douchebaggery. Because in the show, again, the comedy comes from the dialogue and situational type of stuff. My favorite one that really genuinely made me laugh was when Bob finds himself in the middle of a hostage situation. Yes, this is an example of the wackiness. This is guy Mickey, and he holds up the bank across the street, and he's just a chill dude, and that kind of adds on to the comedy. And then as Louise is, on the phone, she actually wants to interview Mickey for her school writing assignment, and every time the police guy, I forgot his name, Bozo, is his name legitimately Bozo? I don't know. Chief Bogo. Every time he tries to take the phone, she's just like, okay, question one. It's like, that's my daddy. My daddy's in there. you She just starts freaking out, and it's like, okay, well, question two. Now, where would you? That part was actually that made me genuinely laugh. I wasn't expecting that, and that episode was overall pretty good. But that's something you don't get in the other shows, which I still think that American Dad is far superior to Family Guy in a lot of ways. But that that's just my opinion, and I know it's not for everybody. Not everybody likes the same sort of humor. But I do think that it does have things to say, and I do think it's more uh, well intended and good natured than these other shows, which is something you don't really see a lot these days. Because I think I briefly touched on it before, but Western animation, and I'm going to try and really focus so I don't get distracted again. Western animation is made in a way where when people make it, or people give it money to be made, they think of it in two ways. This show is for babies. This show is for my 3-year-old nephew. And if it's not for my 3-year-old nephew, then it's an adult comedy, and they curse, and then there's dicks that are censored and all these other things. And if anything, I don't really think that's really adult. I think that's really childish. I would think a good example of an adult sort of animated comedy in a way would be the Venture Brothers. Because the Venture Brothers is paying homage to all the 90s stuff. They got S.H.I.E.L.D., they got superheroes, they got spies, they got all this. They have everything, really. And it's a good series that actually does have good jokes, good writing. It even has good stories and great characters. And if you watch the Venture Brothers, I would say that that's an example of good adult animation. I wouldn't show the Venture Brothers to like my 5-year-old nephew, you know what I mean? But it doesn't overly rely like how some other shows do with fart jokes and shock humor and all this stuff. It actually has very good writing, both again story wise and comedic. It's very good. So, but it seems like you can't really do shows like that anymore. I mean, there's Archer, but Archer was around for a while, so it kind of sneaked by, and then they just kept it going for some reason. But every show that comes out has to be some variation of Family Guy, or Paradise PD, or Brickleberry, or whatever Netflix is pumping out, Farzar, and or Hoops. What the fuck was the point of Hoops? I don't understand. Hoops is really bad. I don't like it, and I don't necessarily find it funny because it's just not good. I don't want to get into it, but those those are the only two things. If you're making an animated show, it has to be for young kids, or you have to do a Family Guy version of it, or like Velma. But Velma, and I don't want to get into Velma. Anyway, anyway, I think that's it. I said I'd be short, and that's what I'm gonna do. So yeah, I would recommend Bob's Burgers again, and I would also recommend. I guess it would be fair to say its sister show, Central Park. It's a similar story, but it takes place in New York. The family lives in Central Park, and it is a bit more musical, but Bob's Burgers always had a bit of music in its DNA. This one kind of lets the songs happen each episode. It might have one or two songs, but you know what? Good for them. Good for them. And there's this episode that I really liked. I think it was the episode The Shadow. The Shadow was good. If you watch Central Park, watch the show all the way up to season two. I think it's season yeah, to season two with The Shadow. Watch that, and if you still don't like it, then okay, fair enough. But it's nice. So maybe I'll do another Central Park thing because I'm trying not to talk too much about certain episodes because just in case anyone wants to watch it, I don't want to spoil the whole plot of the episode or any certain things, even though I just did earlier. So yeah, watch Central Park and watch Bob's Burgers and I don't know, tell me what you think. But I do wish there were more shows like that where you didn't either have to make um, definite children's show or a kind of crude and immature attempt at an adult comedy that's animated. Because I think that's the only way you can make a show. You can't be like, hey, I have this idea for an animated show. Well, actually, I don't know how Arcane happened then, because Arcane, I think, is really good. It does a lot of things right. But, maybe it slipped through the cracks, because Netflix does have a thing of greenlighting 20 things and then saying, okay, you only have 6 episodes. Yeah, but my story takes at least 10. Well, honestly, my story was written with at least 14 episodes, but I can maybe squeeze it to like 12 or 11. No, it's got to be 6. Okay, I'll do 6 episodes. Fuck it. And then they put out the 6 episodes. Okay, this looks pretty good. Yeah, I think I did okay. Yeah, yeah, I can't wait for the next season. And then Netflix looks at them next season. Get the fuck out of my office. Uh, But but it's doing good. People like it. You just said no, no. No, we have to make way for Brickleberry. You piece of shit. Now get out. By the way, I'm taking your property. But can I just finish? No, leave. Leave the show on the desk and your scripts and your badge and then get out of my office. That's kind of like what Netflix does. They greenlight things and then they quickly cancel them for no reason to make way for other shows or because they bapa doo. Yeah, they bapa doopa deep. I don't know. I actually do know because I did look into this because that would frustrate me. Because I'm like, what the hell are they doing over there? But who knows? Maybe I'll do a Netflix video. Maybe I won't. I'm just rambling on. I'm just riffing at this point. Is that the term? Riffing? Anyway, you guys have a good one. And watch Bob's Burgers. And watch Central Park. They're good shows. Okay. Peace out.